I'm Alexandria Kenyon, spiritual mentor and your host of Conscious Connection, a podcast where we create space for humanness within spiritual development. Me and my, when she feels like it, co-host Kimber Klein are giving you a real behind-the-scenes look of what it is actually like to be on a spiritual development path. We will talk with coaches, healers, and other spiritual leaders who are making impact, as well as our clients who will share their real life experience as they practice owning their intuitive gifts. Stick around for unfiltered conversations that may or may not poke fun at New Age spirituality, giving you permission to show up imperfectly human. Well, you made it. Episode 2 of Conscious Connection, the podcast, Season 1. I am your host, Alexandria Kenyon, and today I am going to be interviewing Teresa Brenneman, who is a human design coach. We're going to talk about human design, something that I am so passionate about that I use within my coaching containers with my one-on-one clients. So what is human design? Don't worry, we're going to be answering that question and so much more. But before we begin, you might want to pull up your human design chart. My favorite place to look up my human design chart is myhumandesign.com. What you're going to need is your birth time, so call your mom, find your birth certificate, go down to the courthouse, whatever you need, and you're going to need your place of birth. And that's pretty much it. It's going to generate your chart for you so you can know what your human design type is. We're going to be talking about what human design is, how it's different from astrology, human design as the science of our aura, how our auras by type interact with the universe and with other people, the 4 human design aura types, the big 2027 prophecy shift, and then answering some big questions like, is human design a cult? Do generators get to rest too? How can we use human design in our everyday lives? Where do we even start with human design? What's the difference between manifesting and generating? And what type is the most sensitive to conditioning? It's going to be a really fun journey. I'm excited. I learned a lot. You're going to learn a lot. I hope you come with an open mind and an open heart. And remember that if something doesn't resonate with you, it's okay. You can let that go. When I was activated within the parameters of human design, I felt so seen. I'm an emotional manifestor. It's a pretty rare type. And when I learned about my emotional wave, I felt so validated for all of the times that the spiritual community was like, trust your gut. I'm like, oh, but there's like a lot of emotions in there. I don't know how to trust myself. Human design was the first step on my journey to learning how to trust myself and make decisions from my sense of authority. And this is why I'm so passionate about sharing this with you, with my clients, with my friends, everyone who I talk to. That being said, let's dive in. Here with all things human design, Teresa Brenneman, human design coach, and the most amazing human who activated me on this experimental journey. If you were feeling inspired after the episode to dive deeper with your chart, we do have a special code for you. CC Podcast in all caps. You can use that on her website, and we will link that in the show notes. But without further ado, let's deep dive. So you are just an amazing human design coach, and you were actually the person who initiated me.
Well, I have a Manifestor channel, so I guess it did its job.
Thank God. Thank God. I remember having I was very curious about human design, and then I think it was like April 2020, we had our reading, and yeah, you helped me for sure like activate my experiment. And since then I've been living it.
We're all just living it.
We're all just living it.
It's a shit show. It's like learning about your human design is just the first little taste of everything that you end up experiencing. And although, it's like, although you know about your design, it doesn't mean you have all the answers by any means. It just means that on this roller coaster of life, you have this safety net to strap you in, and you have a way to perceive your reality now. But it doesn't mean it's going to get easy. It doesn't mean it's going to be any less weird. If anything, it gets more weird once you have the perception. But yeah, so, and then there's the shatterings, one shattering after another.
Oh, the shatterings. So tell me, what is human design? And like, why and how is this different from astrology? Astrology is like really, really big now with the collective. And then we have human design. And I want to know, what is human design? How is it different from astrology?
Yeah, so human design is a synthesis of several systems. So synthesis just means it's combined, and it is the I Ching, the Kabbalah tree of life, astrology, the chakra system, and there's also some, neuroscience and that kind of things involved as well. So, and genetics. So it's not really one thing necessarily, but it is a completely unique system in that way that it combines those. So, paying homage to its roots in that it did play off those systems, but it's still a new thing. And the way that it's different from astrology, and there's still so much value in astrology. I've learned a lot about myself through it. Astrology is kind of more abstract and open to a lot of different interpretation, and it's very artful in the way that astrologers use it. There's a creative component to it. There is the way that they see the story of your life through your astrology, and it's a little more airy, when we think about the elements. Human design to me feels very grounded. It feels very earthy. It is tangible and it's practical, and it allows you to commit to the human experience. Whereas astrology, when I first had my natal chart reading, I was like, this is cool, feels very validating, but I wasn't really able to take that information and go do anything with it. It was just things for me to contemplate and ponder. And I'm saying this from the lens of, I'm not an astrology expert, and there might be astrologers out there that have a different explanation for this kind of stuff. But, one of my mentors has studied astrology for 20 years. And even he said, he's studied all the different kinds of astrology. And he said that human design is actually much more simple than it. And everybody thinks it's more complicated. But what it really comes down to is just you connecting to yourself and knowing how you exchange with the universe and what your role is in all of this. So it's very tangible. You can take the information and start applying it right away to your life. And the cool thing is, you don't need to know much. You can know about strategy and authority, and that might be all you even care about in the system. And you can go on your merry way and just take that information and run with it. So yeah, I would just say the biggest difference is how it gives you practical strategies to apply to your life and to start experimenting with, and that it is the science of our aura. Whereas, astrology is more like the science of how the planets affect us. And there is a component of that in human design, but it's more of like, how does my aura interact with the universe and others as a human on Earth, like living the human life, like being in this meat suit?
Yes.
Know?
Let's be human.
Mm-hmm.
I've studied both. And astrology to me is definitely more like a projection. Like we're projecting onto the planet stories. And yeah, we're telling stories through the interactions of that energy. Mm-hmm. Versus human design is very tangible. It's like, here's the strategy, here's your authority, go experience that and let me know how it goes. Let's talk about the types.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the types. So there's 5 types in human design. Do you want to? I'm like, I will do it for you.
You're like, let's do it.
I'm like, let's
Yeah.
go.
I mean, technically, I guess if we're gonna be technical, there's 4 types, but there's 5, manifesting generators were like kind of like a subtype of generator. So yeah, but if we're going to get technical, there's 4 aura types. So
Love it.
yeah, and I also just want to say, like, human design and astrology are both mythologies, right? And so to anybody who's curious about this, you can look at it as, is human design this mythology that I want to take in and see the world through? And it's not going to be right for everybody. And that's the way that I've come around looking at it, is like, this is a mythology. So as we're talking about types, just kind of understanding that as well, of like, this might not be my cup of tea, or this might be the mythology that I want to look at the world through.
Yeah, my friend Brenda is a 6 line, and she says it best. She says, wear everything like a loose robe. Like, you can take it off, you can put it on.
Yes.
Like, you don't have to get attached. And that's what I love about human design, is every time I'm like pushing a little bit too into my archetype, like, I'm always like, okay, that robe's getting a little tight. Like, let's take that off. Let's make space. So, okay, 4 types. Forgot the manifesting generator.
Yes.
Category.
Yes. And I think that just, there's a lot of confusion around what is a manifesting generator. Is it its own type? And I will say, we are very different from pure generators, but technically we have a generator aura. So just to ease up on the confusion for people there. Yep. So, well, the first type, let's talk about the manifestor, because that's what you are.
Oh, hey.
Do you want to tell us about manifestors?
We've got a closed aura. It's repelling. We're here to initiate, and we can be pretty impactful. We're here to get that fire started. Living behind the wall of the closed aura has been fun. I feel like manifestors are often like misunderstood human beings. People either love us or they like hate us. And it's because we're here to initiate a new way of being. For me, it's like I initiate people to change. Not everyone enjoys that experience. But yeah, you can speak more into the manifestor energy. Like,
yeah, I mean, I love that. That was great hearing your experience with it. Manifestors in the past, I would say, were regarded as leaders, because you can legitimately use your voice in order to manifest, use your voice to make things happen. And I feel like before the shift in 1781 happened, and for those that don't know, 1781 is when we discovered Uranus. And so we became 9-centered beings. We went through a mutation where we were 7-centered beings before, and now we're 9-centered beings. Being a 9-centered being is much more about being individuated and having feelings, having emotions, having a direction in life, being able to love and be loved. And 7-centered beings, our ancestors, were more about survival. So it was more about like, who is the winner, who's the loser, who has the power, who can, trump other people with their power, who can get ahead. I don't care who I'm taking down for my own survival. So anyways, I feel like pre-1781, manifestors took advantage of their ability to just kind of boss the generators around and make them work for them, make them build their pyramids, make them whatever, boss the serfs around.
Oh, fuck.
So, post 1781, we're still all conditioned by our ancestors and figuring out this new way of being. So there's a lot of that still lingering. Mutations don't happen overnight. And so, yeah, a lot of people probably associate manifestors, especially if they've dealt with, somebody who's very conditioned or run by the not self, that it can get, it can almost be a power struggle, because ultimately the manifestor aura is probably going to win. It's probably going to beat you out because it's dense and closed. And you just, manifestors are here. Let's talk about the positives. Now that I just shit on manifestors.
Honestly, I love it. I love it. I think it's important for manifestors to realize like that's where we're coming from, and like we're moving into a different space for ourselves.
And so now we're dealing with manifestors who are more likely to be awake, more likely to be aware. And manifestors do initiate us into new ways of being, but you also have this very unique relationship with the cosmos. And that is the point to having a closed aura, is you're here to almost be connected to source and bring something into form, bring something fresh into form. And your closed aura is to protect you from outside conditioning, from, not that manifestors can't be conditioned, but almost from outside influence. You're here to move freely through the world. You don't need to wait to respond or wait for an invitation. You don't need anything from your external reality to validate you before you go. All you need is your authority. And so with manifestors, the strategy is to inform, but it's a political strategy. It's not a built-in strategy like with how generators, we respond. That feels really natural to us once we get in the flow of it. Manifestors, I don't know that informing is ever going to feel natural for y'all. It's really just to keep your relationships intact. And I would think maybe for a fourth line manifestor, it comes a little bit easier because you already have that awareness that your network is important to you. But it almost just feels like, why do I have to tell people things? You know, this is getting in my way of me moving quickly through the world, doing what it is that I want. And it's slowing me down to have to tell people things. But then you get hit with the anger because you didn't inform, and the people that you impacted now are pissed that you didn't inform. And so that's the biggest thing for manifestors, is just to learn how much easier it will make your life when you start informing. And although it's a political strategy, you start realizing the power of informing, and like, oh my gosh, I'm less angry and there's less messes for me to clean up, and I can move even more freely throughout the world if I just take this time to inform the people that will be impacted by my actions.
Fuck yeah. Also, like, being in a female body, it's been really interesting because informing is not asking for permission. So I think my whole life I was like, oh, like, can I do this? I just let people know. I'm like, hey, I'm going to do this. Are you in? Are you out?
And that's as it should be.
And then it's, yeah, like moving into that awareness of like, whether they're in or out, healing a little codependence, I got to go anyway, especially if I'm like following, you know, my authority. And so it's been really interesting because yeah, I'm just like not like teaching. I'm really passionate about teaching manifestors like how to inform, like especially in nonviolent ways, because it's created so much space in my life, so much space for me to not have to answer questions. Like, it's just like, hey, this is what I'm doing. And everyone feels like they're included and they don't have to like come against this like wall of an aura of like, what's she doing? And then they're throwing energy at me anyway. So it's just like, okay, just let them know.
Yeah. And something as simple as, like, for the manifestors listening, like if you have a roommate or you live with a partner or your family, something as simple as, if you're going to go do something, like go to the grocery store, go get gas or whatever, let your people know and see how it just creates so much less confusion and more flow in your whole dynamic. You know, I had a manifestor friend telling me how she used to have this roommate that would always get mad at her when she wouldn't tell her like where she was going and what she was doing. And so it would cause a rift in their relationship. And then as soon as she started just saying, hey, I'm going to go to lunch or I'm going to go on a walk, they had a completely different relationship. So start small. You know, if informing feels like a really kind of big, daunting task to you right now, just start small and see how it creates change.
Absolutely. Yes. I want to touch on one thing. Vice versa, manifestors love to be informed.
Yes.
It is
point.
our kink. Like, oh my gosh, like when people are just telling me what they're doing so I don't have to like be like, do I have to initiate that? Do I have to do that? But like, it is so nice, and vice versa. So I think, you know, that's why I'm so passionate about communication, because I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, this really, really creates ease in my life and my relationships, and kind of just, yeah, create space so that I get to do what I want to do.
Right. And I've also had manifestor clients say that they get a little bit upset if they don't get invited to things, because it's almost like people know, even if you're not into human design, people can feel the manifestor aura, and people tend to not initiate manifestors. You know, I mean, obviously it still happens, but this is just something that I've seen come up a lot. And so they're like, do my friends not like me? It's exhausting that I'm always having to initiate. But that's where informing comes in. So with my friends that are manifestors, I just let them know, hey, I'm going to go to this concert on Friday. Would love to have you there. It's not a direct invitation. I'm also not asking them a yes or no question. I'm not asking them to respond to me. I'm just saying, I'm informing you that I would enjoy your company. Do with that what you will.
I love that so much. I definitely feel that. I feel like people don't invite me to things or like keep me in the loop of their lives either. And I'm like, hey, no, I like really want to hang out with you, but like I have to initiate it. It's got to come from like my energy field. But like if you just let me know what's up, then I can make the decision and I will just full impact, like let's go. Full train.
Yeah. And that's what I've learned, with my friend Brandy and I have this live show called Human Design Coffee Talk. And we've had several manifestors on, and, with them, we just kind of look at it as, hey, I mean, she really takes care of all of this stuff. She's the person that runs the schedule and everything, but she'll just be like, hey, would love to have you on. And then they reach out to us when it works for them. It's usually not on our time. It's like we're aware that this could be months down the road that they initiate and reach out, but we're at least informing them that we'd like to have them on. So
I love that.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, wow, that's in my field. So we'll see if I want to initiate that. I'm going to go to my authority and see how it is. Mm-hmm.
Before we jump into generators, I mean, I'd love for you to talk about what it's really like being a manifestor and how much generators kind of like wish we were manifestors and tend to try to act like manifestors, and how it really is a pipe dream and it's not all it's cracked up to be.
I just want to be so honest with this. Like, I'm jealous of generators. Like, I'm going to come out here and say it. Oh my God, emotion is coming up. I would love if I could just throw my arms back and just receive and just respond to life. I got to go out there with a fucking hatchet and make it happen. So yeah, I think a lot of generators are like, when they first find their human design charts and they're like, I'm a generator, 60% of the population. I'm always like, the world's made for you. Like, enjoy it. Like, it should be a full fuck yeah sacral response. Like, fuck yeah, I came at the right time. Like, being a manifestor it's challenging. It's challenging in a lot of ways because, there's this closed aura, this experience of feeling disconnected from other humans. So there's always this like deep longing to want to connect with people. And also this like, nope, just I always feel one layer removed, one step away. And yeah, I think I've had to get really, really comfortable with rejection. Whereas like when I meet a generator, you guys are so freaking bubbly and magical and like, oh my God, I just want to get up in that aura. Like, but like for me, people are always questioning me and always like suspect of me in some way. They're like, I don't understand you. Which is why I think, as a child, I like talk so much because I was always just trying to like make up for that like lack of like just aura to aura connection. And so, yeah, I think a lot of generators want to be manifestors and you don't know what it is or what it takes, because I have to fucking initiate all the plans. I have to do everything. I have to channel it. I have to run it through an emotional authority. Like, hilarious. I get 80% clarity and then I gotta do it. And then I have to fire up these motor centers. Thank God I have freaking motor centers. Blessed be. And make it happen. And then I sleep for like 3 weeks. It's a fucking shit show. Everyone has the ability to manifest. That's not what being a manifestor is. We're here to do things differently and in a new way and to lead in a way, for me at least, that like respects people's sovereignty. But it's hard out here. I'm exhausted all the time. And I also am like, I know that everyone wants to be special, but I think I would trade it to have a sacral. I really would. So yeah, enjoy it. If you're a sacral and like you get to respond to life and it's just like coming at you and all this opportunity, I have to make my own opportunity for it to be correct for me. That's fucking weird. Think about that. being in a female body as well, I have to initiate relationships. Every man I date, I have to initiate it. I initiate the dates. I initiate where we're going. It's fucking weird, especially being in a female body. So, I would say manifestor energy to me, like, tends to like be a masculine kind of energy. So it's kind of weird to balance being in a female body. And yeah, some days I want to have sacral energy and just be lit up as fuck and like do all the things and not be napping in my bed or like be bullied for sleeping till 11 a.m.
Yeah. I loved that rant. That was great.
Okay. Let me go up.
The moral of the story is that the grass is always greener.
Yeah.
For sure. But I can totally understand why you'd want to have a sacral some days. That's the center that non-energy types are, well, not non-sacrals. I mean, not non-energies. You're technically an energy type, but non-sacrals are like, if I could have any center, it would be the sacral. And I don't blame y'all. I mean, I can't imagine not having my sacral. So I have respect and props for y'all navigating this world without it. That is very much a sacral world. So, and, I think that also just nods to like how, especially once you find human design and you have this confirmation of like, hey, you're meant to rest, work, rest cycles. You're going to be going against the societal programming that tells you to work 24/7, and not even generators are designed for that. And so my work with generators is often around like, hey, let's do less, say less, do less. Okay. And actually tune into your sacral response and see what you're really responding to versus what is your mind hijacking you and taking you into because of the conditioning that we need to be doing and building all of the time, because our sacral also needs rest cycles. So, we're all kind of in that deprogramming of societal conditioning as soon as we hear about this and start tuning into ourselves in this way. So that's a nice segue into talking about the generator type. And the generator type is an open and enveloping aura. So when we're thinking about aura mechanics, that's what we're talking about. Manifestor is closed and repelling, which I know a lot of manifestors don't like that word, but again, it's for protection.
I love it.
Yeah, you're like, yeah,
stay away from me if you're not for me.
Exactly. And that's the thing, is it literally will repel the people that are incorrect for you. It doesn't mean it repels everybody, but it can feel repelling because it's protecting you. And it might even repel people that are correct for you if they're trying to like mess with what you're doing, so it's a protective mechanism. But yeah, the generator aura is the opposite of that. It's going to be open and enveloping, and generators are very susceptible to conditioning because of this. And we are, people can just tap into us because we're just laying it all on the table. Our aura is meant to be tapped into. And I'm sure you've experienced this as a frequency healer, where when you work with generators, it's a lot easier to get in there. And if you've worked with another manifestor or even a projector that has a focused aura, it can be a little more challenging. It's not as easy energetically to just get up in there. So, generators are here to respond to our world. We need something in our external reality to show us what's correct for us, because we learn through our sacral response. So, an example of responding would be, even if I have an idea out of thin air, because acting as a manifestor and initiating is like, you get an idea out of thin air, you run it through your authority, and then you just go make it happen. We're not designed to do that. Generators, even if I get an idea out of thin air, I'm going to be waiting for a sign. I'm going to be waiting for something to respond to before I take action on that. So we can't respond to our thoughts. That's something that a lot of generators think they can do, is like, well, what if I write it down on paper? Then am I technically responding to something outside of me? And that's not the case. So an example of this would be, back in 2015 or something, I don't know how long ago it was, I was working at a fitness studio and I could feel through my intuition that I wanted to pivot and do something different, add something to my repertoire. And I knew it was going to be something to do with body work, but I just didn't know what. And my mind was like, well, maybe you're going to go to massage school. Maybe you're going to this, maybe that. And I didn't act on anything. And this is before human design. So I don't know how I was in alignment naturally in this way, but I just waited. I was like, I feel like I'm going to do something with body work. I just don't know what. And there was a dude at my fitness studio that was stretching people. He would rent space from us and stretch. And I would watch him and be like, wow, he's so busy. And I'm intrigued by this. And we ended up moving studios and he didn't come with us. And my business partner was like, hey, he's not coming with us. I feel like it's probably pretty simple to go get certified in that. I think it was a school that he went to here. Would you want to learn how? And she gave me something to respond to. She asked me a yes or no question. And this is where timing is everything too. We had 2 weeks off when we were moving, and there was a class that lined up with those 2 weeks to where I didn't even have to take time off work. I went to the class and it was perfect. So anyways, that's just a good example of that, is like generators, if you get an idea out of thin air, do not initiate it. See if something comes into your reality. And it doesn't necessarily have to be somebody asking you a question. It could be, I could have seen him and been like, I have a response for stretch therapy. I'm seeing him in my external reality. I'm going to go investigate that or whatever. So yeah, that's the biggest difference between manifesting and generating.
It sounds luscious.
Yes.
I'm like, that's so awesome. I love that it's like, hey, do you want this opportunity? And you're just like, yes.
Yeah, I do have a response for that.
I'd be the one like, I've seen, like, I want this vision for myself. Would you like to respond and be on my train?
That's it. That's how it works. And I would say, the biggest difference between manifesting generators and pure generators, because manifesting generators, we're like a subtype. So we have manifesting capabilities, and yet we still have to work in response. So a lot of times MGs are really conditioned to think they need to operate like manifestors. And we live in a reality that's like, hey, just do it. Get out there, make your dreams happen. And so it's funny because even though this is a sacral reality, it tries to condition us all to be like manifestors too. It's like trying to, it's really an MG reality. It's like you need to respond, but also you need to be manifesting, but also convincing us that we can go out there and make things happen when we need to work in response. It's very confusing. So we can make things happen very quickly. And that's the biggest thing I've seen from like my pure generator clients and friends that are like, oh, it just seems like you move so much faster than me. But I like to use the comparison of the tortoise and the hare, because we're both going to get to the finish line at the same time, probably. It's just that the MG appears to be moving faster because we have that manifesting capability. And a lot of times we skip steps because we're going so fast and we need to go back and redo those steps. Whereas a pure generator is going to be more methodical and is going to be going towards mastery. And an MG is going to seem kind of like we're all over the place, but that's correct for us to be, having our hands in multiple cookie jars in that way.
Love it. I love it.
Yeah. So I feel like that is that enough about generators. Did you have any questions about generators?
It sounds fun. I like it. I mean, I think from what I've read and understood, that the pure generators, they kind of go through these moments of like plateauing to respond again and again. So it's kind of like they edge the idea, and what they're responding to is really like this, like, do I have the energy to do this and to bring this into completion? And so I think that's really cool. Whereas a manifesting generator is like, manifest one, kind of like, zigzagging.
Yeah, we zigzag definitely, because we're designed to find efficiency and see what steps can we skip, Right. And for me, at least with my experience, when I'm doing something that I'm really like excited about and I have a sacral yes to, I have the energy for, I don't mind going back and skipping and redoing things if I skipped steps, because cool, I have a response to do that because this whole thing in its entirety is correct for me, And that's kind of just a little piece of advice that I give to MGs is if you're getting angry, because we do have the manifestor anger as well, you're getting angry because you have to go back and redo things because you skip steps, you probably entered into that incorrectly, and it might just not be correct for you at all. And that's okay, because we learn, and when I say the words correct and incorrect, it's just, I'm not saying one is better than the other, because we're all going to do incorrect things, and that's how we learn about ourselves as well. But it's kind of just the difference between feeling into when you made a decision with your authority versus your mind, and it's all good. It's all learning.
Yeah. And so when you say anger, what you're talking about is the not self. Each type has like a not self theme. And for manifestors, it's anger. For the sacral beings, the sacral generators, manifesting generators, it's frustration.
Yeah.
We'll talk about projectors in a second, but yeah, manifestors can be definitely angry people. And I find that like, that anger comes from like, where did you not inform and what boundaries do you need to create in order to, see your vision through? Yeah, that frustration in generators is interesting to witness. How does that kind of manifest for you?
It feels like I haven't driven a stick shift in a long time, but I was learning when I was in high school for a little bit, and my brother took me onto this mountain to teach me, and it was very like, small roads and confusing, and that's what I remember getting so frustrated when he was trying to teach me this and having to go up hills and not be able to see where I was going very well, and it was at night, dangerous, wouldn't recommend. And it just felt like the gears were getting stuck. It was like anytime I thought I got the hang of it, the car would stall or something. And it felt like that. If we think of the body as a vehicle, it just felt like I wasn't supposed to go that way. That something was trying to get me to stop because my sacral did not have a response for it. And that frustration can come up in a few different ways. I try to teach generators about mental frustration versus physical frustration, because generators are the famous quitters. And most of the time we quit things because we didn't enter into it correctly. But sometimes, especially for pure generators, it's just because you're hitting a new level, like you were talking about the plateaus, and you have to go with the plateaus. And just because you're mentally frustrated that you're not improving anymore at something doesn't mean that it's incorrect for you. It just means you have to move through the plateau. And so, I would say that's something pure generators probably deal with more. I've still experienced that before, but because MGs are jumping around so much and we're multifaceted as it is, we tend to just be like, you know what, I'm going to put this thing down for a little while, I'll come back to it later. And we don't quit things fully all the time, at least not in my experience. So yeah, that frustration, it can come up for a lot of reasons. It can come up because we're burned out, and we just need a rest. I think of the not self theme as like just like a check engine light. I love the vehicle analogies because it just works so well. And it's not that your motor is going to explode. It's not that you're going to break down, but it might be trying to get your attention that you could be on the way to breaking down, or you could be on the way to something happening. And so it's just an opportunity for you to look under the hood and see what's going on for any type that's experiencing their not self. Like asking yourself, if you're a generator, where have I not been responding? Am I initiating? Am I not resting? Am I trying to push? Am I trying to push things that aren't meant to happen? Or am I mentally frustrated because I'm plateauing? There's a lot of different, am I trying to force creativity when I should be doing something mundane and taking a break from my creativity? So we can't be creative all the time.
Right.
So for manifestors, it's like, okay, the anger is very clearly when you don't inform or when something gets in your way, or when
you're interrupted.
Or when people don't inform you.
So we have the manifestor and we have the generator, which has the subtype manifesting generator. What else do we have? Who else is out there? Our favorites.
We got the projectors.
Hey guys.
So yeah, what's up, projectors? Projectors are...
You're being invited to this podcast.
Yes. Projectors are the baby of the family. They're the newest type, technically. Reflectors and manifesting generators were the first types. But I digress. Projectors came onto the planet in 1781, supposedly. The mythology says, projectors came onto the planet in 1781 because we were entering into our nine-centered era, and projectors are here to guide. They're here to be visionaries. They're here to see what others cannot see. In the animal kingdom, I would compare them to birds because they're kind of sitting up on their branch, seeing what's playing out, seeing the big picture. And we're like, the energy types are on the ground, kind of like bumping in. We're on the hunt, we're the lions and the tigers that are like, let's go. And we can have blinders on. We can have, especially sacral beings, because when we're in response mode, we're just, blinders. So projectors are there to kind of see what we don't see and be able to guide us from that broader perspective. Technically projectors, and I don't know if you've had experience with this, when a projector is trying to poke your aura, because they have a focused aura. It's focused and absorbing. It's penetrating.
It hurts.
It can't do it really, though.
It's like, it tries so hard, but like, they almost can. They get to the surface level of it. And I'm like, it's a little too close for me.
They're really not meant to, though. I mean, if they had a very clear invitation from you, they can still offer you guidance, but they're not going to be able to get up in your aura the same way that they can with generators, because projectors and generators are like a key and a keyhole. Like we are meant for each other. It's like yin and yang. The generator would be the vagina. If we're comparing this to sex.
I love it. I love it.
Feel that way.
Let's do it.
My friend
and the
Brayton,
projector is a big old penis.
That's what it is. My friend Brayton, who's a projector, is always saying consent before penetration, because they say a projector's aura is penetrating. And so for the invitation is getting consent for penetrating with your aura.
This is so funny because I just went on this journey with a projector who taught me about consent, but also wasn't asking for consent to penetrate my aura.
There you go.
Fascinating.
Yeah, there it is. And the thing is that projectors, they can't see themselves because they learn about themselves through the other. So if you're a projector, you do kind of have to be aware of like introspection and how there might be, I don't want to say that they're not meant for introspection, because that's a very polarizing thing in the human design space. But if I was using Ra's words, Ra Uruhu's words, I would say that they're not meant for introspection. And so projectors can kind of get stuck in mental loops if they're constantly going inward. When they're meant to learn about themselves, it's just through the other that they learn about themselves. So through interactions with others, through guiding others or witnessing others, that's how they learn about themselves. And they're here to be incredibly aware. Like, I'm not even going to front. Projectors are way more aware than I am.
Oh, 100.
Their game is awareness. Like, we all have a game to play in this matrix, and projectors is awareness, 100%.
Go off. I will give it to them.
I will give them that crown.
You
I mean,
are the best.
As right beings, we're obviously here to have awareness, but they take like a quad right projector is the ultimate king or queen of awareness.
Could you even imagine?
One of my best friends is a quad right projector.
I live it.
I'm incredibly aware. And, there's something so special about the generator projector relationship and when it's correct and how it truly is amazing. It's like the way that one of my friends has described it, my friend Sammy, she says it feels like the generator gives me like a platform, and then I just get to go like stand on that platform. And it's almost like we invite them into life. We invite them into the life force, and there's this beautiful mutual exchange, because I give them life force, they give me guidance. And when their guidance is invited and it's recognized, it's so potent, and like it's just powerful. And you really understand the difference between like coaching and, we can all guide others. We're all here to be an outer authority. But there really is something unique about the way that projectors guide. And it's almost like, it's the things that they don't say are what is more powerful than what they even do say. You know, because they're here to ask questions and almost guide you into finding your own answer by asking questions or giving you something that's thought provoking to contemplate, you know, something that's never, it's usually something that's never entered my awareness. And I'm always like forever changed when I have guidance from a projector. And it feels like, you know what it also feels like there's been times where I'm like spinning out in my emotional wave and I feel like very disconnected from my authority just because the emotions are so intense. And I can talk to a projector that's correct for me in that moment, and they'll just like lock me back into my authority. They'll just lock me back into my trajectory. And it feels so incredibly relieving because it like just allows my mind to stop spinning out and be like, oh, yes, this is my trajectory. This is what my authority is getting towards. Or, you know, even if I don't know the answer to my problem or whatever, I feel like the confidence that I will find it eventually, or I will have clarity eventually. So yeah, I can't say enough good things about projectors. And like all types, you can be in the not self. And I have so much empathy for projectors because this world really wasn't created for them. It's almost like they're having to do the work right now to help get this world to a space where it's okay for them to live in. And it's I mean, in reality, this is like manifestors and reflectors are on the outside the most. You guys are like the most alien, I would say, because this is starting to become a projector / generator reality, because the projectors are starting to guide the generators on like how to design this reality.
Are they forming an alliance?
I think so. I sure hope so. Because
that
it
sounds
like
fun.
Ra used to say, you know, I could wake up a million manifestors and it wouldn't actually change the world, which you'd think that it would.
I know, but we're like here on our own agendas. Let's be honest.
True.
Like we're here with like the agenda to like tune into our own source and interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
every conversation I've had with the projector, for the most part, I don't want to say every conversation, but like they can be amazing guides and hold amazing space and have beautiful perspective. And I'm really grateful for that.
Yeah. And I think the more we approach 2027, which the prophecy, the mythology, which of course we don't really know until it happens. So, you know, nobody needs to do anything with this information, but the more we approach 2027, which is when there's supposedly going to be a background frequency shift, and I think we can all feel that already, we're going to need them more and more. So their guidance is already very valuable, but it's going to become more obvious how valuable it is in a post 2027 world. So,
yeah, we gotta do reflectors, but I also want to talk about.
Yeah, we'll come back to 2027.
Yeah, 2027. I want to.
Let me write that down. That's a whole rabbit hole.
Put that on a note.
You don't want to do reflectors dirty. We got to give them as
I
much
would
airtime.
never.
I would never. I love reflectors so much, and I hear from them like, "Why am I always last?" And then I'm like, "Fuck, I always put you last. I don't mean to."
I'm gonna put you first, babies. We are gonna form an alliance. We're gonna form an alliance. The Manifestor and Reflector world. We are gonna be rare types only. Don't fuck with us.
You got to get those reflectors in your life, because the Manifestor reflector relationship is a very special and unique one. And I would almost say y'all are meant for each other almost just as much as projectors and generators. It's a big statement, but
say it. Where are my reflectors at?
You know?
If you are a reflector, come to me immediately.
Yeah.
This is me initiating you.
It can be very harmonious. So yeah, reflectors have a aura that's quite like Teflon. So it's sampling and resistant. And it's interesting. A lot of people say, oh, reflectors are so sensitive because they're completely open. And I'm like, actually, if we were like saying who's the most sensitive to conditioning from this reality or from other people, I would say projectors are the most sensitive to conditioning, because they're actually here to be conditioned and learn about our conditioning. But reflectors are here to be conditioned by the cosmos. And same with the manifestor. It's just a different type of thing, right?
I love it.
And it's not like reflectors can't be conditioned by people. Absolutely they can. But their aura is sampling. So they're not like diving deep into the aura of the other like a projector would. They're sampling bits and pieces of it. They're kind of tasting it and saying, okay, I'm tasting. So reflectors are here to be like a neutral judge. We call them the Supreme Court judge of the universe, of our reality, because they're really here to just be watching what's happening, and but not in the way how projectors are kind of like designing the reality now. They're available to reflect the health of a community. And if the reflector in the community is not doing well, is not healthy, is not happy, is not surprised, then we got to see what's going on in this community. And when I say community, it could be family, it could be your workspace, it could be an online community. You know, we can get pretty creative with our definition of community here. So it really it's kind of like they call them the canary in the coal mine, because back in the day when people would be mining, they would put the canary in there basically to see if it was going to poison the workers. And if the canary would die, then they'd be like, oh, that coal mine isn't safe for us. I know it's kind of dark, but
I'm so sorry.
I'm so sorry. Reflectors,
I'll never do that to you.
Yeah, that's not, it's not your job to die for us. But
please don't martyr yourself for this collective.
Do not martyr yourself, but it is your job to reflect the health. And if the other types are not cognizant of the reflector and how healthy they are or unhealthy, we won't learn and get better and grow. And so we need to be asking reflectors in our lives, how do you feel in this space? You know, what can change? What could be better? What are you noticing? What are you aware of? What are you seeing? And reflectors are the only type that get to experience what it feels like to be any type. Like, really think about that for a minute. You get to feel what it feels like to be a manifestor or a manifesting generator, and that's it.
I love being a manifestor.
I only know what it feels like to be a manifesting generator. I don't even know what it feels, because I will have a sacral and a motor to throw it no matter what. Projectors get to
okay, I see. Because my sacral can be defined by the transits or by other people.
Yeah.
Right.
Reflectors get to be every single type. So basically, reflector, I like to think about it as like chapters in a book or scenes or like a TV show, and every time the transits shift, you're in a different episode. So, you know, 1 week a reflector could be like a manifesting generator because of those transits, and then the next week they're a projector. And so they really get to develop this amazing non-biased perspective of our reality, because they know where everybody's sitting. They know how everybody feels. They're incredibly empathetic. And it's sad because I just don't feel like as a society we see their value right now. Similar to projectors in that way, but I feel like we really should be paying more attention to reflectors and asking them for their awareness, because that is quite literally their role. And a lot of them just end up, they should be in the center of their community. And a lot of them just end up wanting to run away and go off grid and live in nature, because being in nature is really healthy for reflectors. But it's like they're not going to be really playing out their role if they're just running away and living in nature. So we need them, and we need to make them feel special and important. And it's, you know, they do have the opportunity to be this like incredibly powerful being. And if they're not awake, and Ra did say they were the hardest type to wake up, because yeah, I know, it's, you'd think it'd be like manifestors or something, but
he said it about every type, but
and then he gets to the last one and he's like actually,
it's actually you.
Screw everything I just said. Reflectors are the hardest.
He is like,
here's the thing though, if you got to be every single type, and like if you were run completely by the not self, and you had that all, think about how powerful that is. Are you really going to want to wake up to the fact that everything is temporary in your life and everything is fluid?
No, I would think that would be really, really, really challenging to have to meet. I met a reflector recently at an event who had just found out that she was a reflector. And I was like, are you okay? She's like, no, I don't know who I am.
It's so
It's like
hard.
it's a crisis, right? Like it
Yes.
can
Yeah.
be easily a crisis, but also, I don't know if there's a big enough network of reflectors. It's 1% of the population in terms of human design.
It's still a lot of people though, when you really think
Yeah.
about it. I feel like, in terms of like ones that know about human design, there's definitely like Facebook groups, and
Cool.
there are communities for reflectors to reach out to, because I think they do need each other. But at the same time, one of my friends is a reflector, and she works with reflectors the most, which is great. Her name's Amanda Prischel, for any reflectors out there that want
Woo! We
guidance
love a
from another,
resource. I don't
right?
know what they are.
Aces in their places. They need to work with another reflector at first, at least, and she talks about how, yes, it's amazing for reflectors to come together and to be able to like have that shared experience, but at the same time, they're here to be sampling everybody, and so they can't get too comfortable in their reflector bubbles. They have
Right.
to still go out there and be conditioned and experience. So
Just
yeah,
like
and
we
like,
just like we all can't be comfortable. Like,
true.
sometimes I'm like, okay, I guess we'll just get all the non-sacrals together and
Mm-hmm.
sleep. But it's like
Which
we
has its
actually,
value.
which has its value, but also it's like we need to be interconnected and we need to be working together, and we all can complement each other in really beautiful ways. And I think that that's
100%.
important.
I think so too. I think, human design is really to teach us, yes, we're all different. We're all incredibly unique. Even if you're the same type, same profile, even if you have the same birthday as somebody, there's still going to be so much uniqueness in you. And we're here to honor each other's uniqueness and recognize each other's roles and our own roles. So totally. I totally get into that space sometimes where I'm like, I only want to be around generators, so much easier. And then I'm like, no, the other
Who
types
will you
offer,
respond to?
right. I know. The other types just offer so much.
I
So
know.
we all offer so much to one another. So yeah, that's the types.
So before we go into 2027,
Mm-hmm.
I just want to mention that you definitely have a sweet spot for teaching generators, sacral beings, how to
Yeah.
respond, and you have something new coming up.
Yeah. So my friend Brandy and I, if anybody out there is aware of our show, Human Design Coffee Talk, or you can find us on Instagram at Human Design Coffee Talk. We're also on YouTube. Her and I collaborate. She's also an MG. She's a sacral manifesting generator. And we just found that we love working together, but we also love working with sacral types together because it's our lived experience. And I do one-on-ones with all types, but as far as group coaching, I really prefer for it just to be a sacral container. And Ra did say, wake up the generators and save the world. So not that I'm trying to save the world or anything, but I am trying to just show generators how rich life can be when we commit to operating accordingly to our type, and, not allowing the not self to run our show, and just really start to love responding and being that amazing sacral being that's life-giving. And so in August, at the end of August, we're going to be doing a 5-week container that's exclusively for sacral beings. And you can find the information at beingsacral.com.
Oh my gosh. I love it.
It's
Okay.
super fun. And we go deep, we don't just do human design. I would say people who are like, you're not going to want to join this container if you're not at least interested in human design. But you can be a newbie, and it's an immersive container. And that's, some feedback that we got from our last one is like, you really learn how to speak the language, because even if you're new to the system, you're around people that are speaking the language and sharing from that perspective. And we go in deep with all of our other modalities as well, parts work, inner child work, frequency medicine. And it's definitely an intense container. It's like, okay, I'm ready to really commit to this and to begin my deconditioning process and to have support throughout that. And if that is up your alley and you're not afraid to go deep and have that support while doing it, and while really learning about yourself, because generators are here to learn about ourselves.
Sounds fun. I want to come. Just kidding.
Yeah. You a fly on the wall? We do have a lot of other types, especially projectors, right? Because they want to learn about generators. And
They're like, can we come?
Them all? Like, no, your focused aura will
just throw us all off.
I
I just want to come to initiate something.
Yeah,
I don't know what they're going to be, but it's going to be a fun time.
I feel like it'd be fun to have certain other types come in, though. I don't know. We'll figure it out eventually, but I've thought about that. Like, what would it be like just to have like one of each type, like lead a class?
I know.
So,
that would be awesome.
Don't know. The idea
available. I'm available. Okay, let's talk about 2027.
Okay.
I love the drama. I love the drama that is human design in some ways.
God. All the drama.
Like 2027 is coming.
Yes, which some people are freaking out about, and I'm not like, you remember in 2012 how it was a whole thing, and in Y2K, and so I'm definitely not in that camp of like, holy shit, everything's gonna collapse, even though it probably is, but maybe not in our lifetime. Maybe not. We don't know.
Who's to say? We can't be. We just did an episode on future casters, like. I'm psychic. I can't read the future. Who's to say? I can tell you that. Hopefully we'll be good, but you know.
I mean, it's like, I feel like all of us do have this inner knowing, and we can feel or sense the future in some way, but we don't know how it's going to play out, when, like, you know. And so human design has given us a lot to perhaps chew on and expect and be aware of. And if the last 2 years hadn't gone the way they had, I would maybe think that Ra was crazy for his prophecy. But now I'm kind of like, okay, maybe I'm believing him, which is another fun thing about human design, because it is considered a science. It's like Ra was like, prove me wrong. Like, take this information, go experiment with it. This is a science, and we're going to continuously add to it as well. But he did say that in 2027, our background frequency would change. So we're going from one incarnation cross to another. So we all have our own personal individual incarnation crosses. And then the collective has a global cycle that we are being conditioned by, that we are under the influence of, depending on the planets. So you can think about that as our background frequency. And it's basically like this program that's brainwashing us, to be honest. And there's no way around it. I mean,
I love it.
You can individuate, and you can definitely listen to your authority, and that's going to help with not being as conditioned by the planets and their fuckery. But there is an extent where we're all kind of helpless to it. And this is an example of that. For the last 400 years, we've been under a cross called the cross of planning. This cross is all about talent. It's all about community. It's very tribal. It's like, I have the willpower to do what I need to do for the community, to sacrifice myself. It's all about, the marriage exchange and that kind of thing. And it's like the traditional values that have been instilled in our reality. It's systems, structures, the knack for being able to do very detailed work. It's what's put us in a technological boom. And it's funny because everybody thinks that we're just going to keep getting more and more technologically advanced. And according to Ra, it's actually the opposite. Like, we're going to start going backwards at some point, or there just isn't going to be any more technological advancement. And that might be why it feels like it's like ramping up right now, because it's like almost like we got to get it all done before 2027.
Oh, I like feel that in some ways too. I feel like we are going back to the earth. We are going back to like these ways that we've really like bypassed.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah, we're already kind of seeing it. Like, it's almost like we're not necessarily inventing anything super new anymore. We're just kind of reinventing the wheel, right? But improving it. Like, I don't know, Uber, for example. It's still a taxi. It's just a different kind of taxi. It's an improvement on the previous system, but we're not necessarily like doing anything incredibly groundbreaking. And I feel like when things are groundbreaking, they aren't really landing that well, So I don't know, that there's that component of it. And those of us born under the cross of planning, which is everybody born pre-2027, will still be conditioned by that. So that's still going to be like in our systems, and we're going to start feeling like aliens in this completely new reality of like, what the fuck is going on? So we're shifting over to the cross of the sleeping phoenix, which is there. Yeah, right. Sounds great.
The drama.
It's very individualistic. It's very much like in the now. It's going to have the channel of charisma 2034, that channel of keeping busy in the incarnation cross. So everybody's just going to be like busy trying to survive, busy with their ambition, because gate 54 will be in there in the keys, not in the cross, but in the keys. And I'll be interested to see what happens with like sex, because gate 59, the gate of sexuality, is going to be in there. And I think we're already kind of seeing this. We're seeing not as many people getting married. We're seeing people like, wanting casual sex more, hookup culture, these kinds of things. Whatever your opinion is on those things, it's happening. Polyamory, whatever. So I will be curious to see, like, will marriage keep declining in the future? I think less people are going to want to procreate. Fertility rates are already dropping. That's something that Ra predicted. He predicted a lot of the stuff that's happening now, and he died in 2011. So it's like, he hasn't even been around to see. He said viruses were going to go up. Like, he said autism rates were going to raise. Autism rates have been climbing. Testicular cancer, I think he said that was going to. So yeah, there's all of these things that are happening that are contributing to these changes. So I could ramble on, but in a nutshell, we're going from a tribal reality where we're all here to support of each other and be supported. And we have these systems set in place, the school system, the medical system, the government, for better or for worse, we have these systems set in place that support all of us to an extent. Obviously they could be better, but what happens if all of that goes away? And you can already see how the collective is losing trust in the government. Roe v. Wade, like, look what's happening. People are starting to see, holy shit, we cannot trust these systems that are set in place. So the way I look at it is, if it's all going to collapse eventually, and Ross said it would take like 100 years, so we don't need to start freaking out or anything. It's going to be a slow process. But if all of it's meant to collapse, don't you think it has to start with like the collective losing trust in the systems that are in place?
Deeply, yes. Deeply, yes. I'm just over here like, what a fun time to be incarnated.
100%. That's what Ra would joke too. Like, congrats on reincarnating and like this fucking insanity.
I'm like, fuck yeah. I'm like, woo, can I stay grounded through this? I don't know.
It's a roller coaster, dude.
It really is. It really is.
Ra would even joke, I hope I die before 2027, because he was like, I don't want to be around for you. Like, I don't want to be around for this.
I'm exiting the planet. I've done my work here.
Dude, he predicted his own death.
God,
he knew his willpower was running out, and he died the week that the sun was in gate 51, which is his conscious sun. How fucking crazy is that?
Interesting.
I know. Pretty wild.
What's that man up to? We should read his energy from the mediumship plane. No, we definitely not.
I'm always like, what would Ra do? But it's not like a what would Jesus do? It's more just to make yourself laugh, because Ra was wild.
Fucking wild manifestor. Like, watch anything on YouTube about Ra.
Right.
He's just.
But he also is like, we interviewed his best friend, Alok Anand Diaz, on Human Design Coffee Talk, and Alok was like, people didn't see like the soft side of him, and manifestors really are, y'all are gummy bears.
We're literal babies. Like,
you're like gummy bear porcupines.
I know, but you all think that we're like these scary individuals, or I don't even know what you think. I honestly don't, but like, we're soft, gentle babies, and we just cry, and we just want people to know that we're humans too. Really, and like, we're not superheroes. Like, I think a lot of people project onto us like, oh, she gets so much done, she can initiate, she can create, blah, 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 blah. My cat's like trying to get in the door. Like, no. But yeah, we are soft little gummy bears. Manifestors have feelings too.
Right. Yeah. And Alok would say he was the best father, and like the way he was with kids, and he really didn't want any of the projections that people put onto him. And a lot of people didn't see that side of him. So,
I find him very amusing.
He's very endearing. He's still impacting from beyond the grave. So that's a true manifestor, impacting even when you're dead. So
love that for him, honestly.
Right.
Okay, so let's talk about, now that we're talking about Ra, this is the perfect time to talk about, is human design a cult?
Oh my God, my favorite
Your
subject. I mean,
favorite
cults are my
subject.
favorite in general, but because anything can be a cult, human design is still has the possibility to be a cult. I really think that it's not systems that create cults, it's people that do. So anybody could come and take any system and say, this is the thing I want to control people with. I want to manipulate and control people with. So, when you first get into human design, I think it's really important to not necessarily jump into these communities, as tempting as it may be. And I'm actually really glad that for my first year, I wasn't jumping into like human design communities and I wasn't making a lot of friends in the system, because I probably would have been, it just would have been more challenging for me. And I really had my own experience with it, and as much as I was in like some other spiritual questionable things and was having my own reality with that, it was really about me and my own journey when I first heard about it. So you can easily be like, okay, I'm going to go and follow this person, and then like what they say about human design is the gospel, and there are these like huge human design influencers out there that have like written books or teach courses, and it's kind of like pick your flavor. But at the same time, if you're taking everything that person says like as the word, and you're bypassing your own authority, or even if you're just like in a human design Facebook group or a community or something, and other people are brainwashing you into thinking something about yourself and bypassing your own lived experience, then that's not cool either. So, I would say this system is not here to brainwash you even more. It's here to get you connected to yourself. And your authority could say, fuck human design, I don't want anything to do with that. And cool, if that's what it says to you, then don't ever look at it again. I actually had that happen with a client that signed up for one of our group programs. She signed up and then had to message me and say, I think I've already gotten what I needed from human design, which was just my strategy and authority, basically. And I don't desire to know anymore. And I was like, fucking perfect. I will refund you, because that is what
Love it.
that's what your authority is saying. And I'm not trying to convince anybody that this is going to make their life any better or different, or we really try to stay away from like magical thinking, in that this is actually really realistic and tangible and logical and mechanical, and not everybody needs it. I was joking because one of my coworkers at the wellness center doesn't know her birthday, or even like she has no idea how old she is, because she was like abandoned as a child. Crazy. But I'm like, well, you don't need the system then. And she's somebody who really feels so authentic to me, and her aura feels so, I don't know, she just feels good to be around. And I'm like, it's just not a part of your journey in this lifetime. You don't need this. Right. I'm like, I'm neurotic. I need something to show me how to be myself and give me permission for being myself. There's plenty of people out there that don't need it. So if it's not a mythology or a lens that you want to look at the world through, or that feels right in your authority, it's not for you. And that doesn't make anybody better than you at all.
Yeah, I definitely agree. For me, and we were talking about this before we hopped on, like we both had experiences of being very, very spiritual and being in a lot of different spiritual communities. And for me, that experience was very ungrounding. Mm-hmm. It was very in the ethers. It was very detached from the humanness. Yeah. And so I feel like, at least for me, there was this pivot point of like, you need to learn how to be human. And I'm hoping that you're hearing the ice cream truck that comes around every Wednesday. Like, I love it. But I need to be human, and I need to learn how to be human. And for me, when I learned about human design, I swear it alchemized like 20 years of trauma for me in one activation, because I realized I was taking on the blame and responsibility for others not liking me. And the second that I learned I was a manifestor, it just clicked. It was like, oh, fuck. So if that's an experience that you have with human design, and it's just like,
Yeah.
If it feels like that to your body and you feel validated by it, then go fucking off. If it's something that feels like, oh, wait, this is like limiting and I don't like this, then don't engage. There's many different ways that you can develop yourself or like introspect. But yeah, for me, human design gave me grounding at a time where I was so far away from my humanness and I wanted to just detach and float away.
Yeah.
And I'm so fucking grateful for it.
Same. It just, if you don't feel relief when you hear at least something about your chart, obviously some things are harder to take in than others, but if that's not like the general feeling when you get a reading, maybe it's not right for you, maybe it's not right for you in this time, maybe your nervous system just can't handle it right now and you need to come back to it. But that's what I hear from 99.9% of my clients is, I felt so relieved. I felt like I could just let go of so many stories just from that like 1 hour of hearing about my design. And I think therapy is amazing. I'm such a proponent of getting therapy and doing that healing work, but there are some things that we cannot therapize out of us. There are some things where it actually doesn't help to think, oh, I need to go in this and to change this. And I know not all therapy works in that way, but I need to like go in this and like, this is something that's not okay about me, this is something that's broken. And human design actually just says, what if that thing that you don't like about yourself is actually just how you operate? And obviously it's a fine line with that, because we do have trauma and trauma responses and things that we do need to heal 100%, and we can't like blame everything on our design. But there is like just being an emotional and getting the freaking,
Yes.
you're just gonna be sad sometimes. Like, it's okay, and you're gonna take your time to make decisions, and it's okay to go slow. I love working with emotionals for that reason, because I get to give them permission to be like, dude, you're just not gonna be in the mood some days.
I love it. I know.
You're just gonna be
It was
sad.
so liberating for me to realize that I have an emotional wave. And when I'm in a low, it's okay to accept myself. Human design for me, if I just put it into a sentence, brought me into self-acceptance.
Mm-hmm. And that's its one, I would say that's its one job.
That's its one job. Like, it's like, okay, wow, like you are going to be powerful. You're going to piss people off. You're going to do it anyway. You're going to be okay. You're going to be emotional. Can you own your emotionality?
And you're going to find your people.
You're going to find your people. And I have.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
That is the one thing human design really, like, self-acceptance, yes. And with that self-acceptance also comes with finding your fractal, which we would think that like soul people, whatever you want to call it, your fractal is the people that you've been in many, many lifetimes with, and you've been traveling alongside one another, and they're your people. And you're not going to necessarily love everybody on your fractal. It doesn't mean that you're not still doing this together. But you will really find your tribe, the people that you're meant to do life with, whether that's partnerships, friendships, all of it. And those people are going to accept you for who you are, period.
Oh, speaking to all my manifestors out there are people out there.
Yes. I know the manifestors get that reputation as the lone wolf, and you are a lone wolf, but that doesn't mean that you don't deserve love and support, and that you won't still have people in your life that really care about you and honor you. And it's just the awareness of like, okay, I'm not going to necessarily function like this group does, and I'm going to go off on my own a lot, but they're still going to be there when I come back.
No, it's really beautiful, and I like appreciate it. I appreciate the frame of human design so much. I use it with my clients. It's such a beautiful tool to get someone to come into their own decision making, their own authority. And that's what it did for me. It's like, most of us are like, especially my clients who are coming to me for like intuition. Like, they're like, how do I make a decision? It's like, okay, let's talk about like the mechanics. Let's talk about your body. Let's talk about what's going on here. There's a lot of different ways. And that was really liberating for me, because like in the beginning of my spiritual journey, it was always like, trust your gut. as the general, which works for 60% of humanity, right? Like, trust your gut. And I'm like, I would be like, my gut says nothing ever. Like, what?
Or if you're thinking about your emotional authority as your gut, you're like, it's all over the place.
Yeah. I'm like, what are you saying? Like, one day it's a yes, the other day it's a no. And so that's what I love about human design is like you have these authorities, these defined centers, and learning that my authority is not like that just in the moment response, and rather like a over time like feeling of that's definitely sacred, but a feeling of like just like ease with the decision changed my life.
I mean, it sounds like peace. Like
it's peace.
It's giving you peace. It's your signature.
It's my signature, which is like moving to Asheville for me. Like I had to ride that wave.
Yeah.
And it took me 6 months to kind of make that decision. But yeah, it's about taking your time and knowing that like life will align when it aligns. I'm getting way ahead of myself because now I'm like into like authority, which I don't think we'll have time to like fully cover.
Yeah.
But human design is incredible, and it's a tool. It's a tool on your belt. You do not have to become it or like worship Ra.
Yeah, no. He would wear shirts that said, "I'm not your guru," or like helpless and incompetent. He had a hat that said helpless and incompetent.
Yeah.
Just so people wouldn't project so much, because it's not what it's about. It's not about like, oh, this chick Teresa has all this information for me. No, like I'm here to just be like, look, I do have this information, but I don't know any better than you. I'm like just as helpless and incompetent to all this shit as you are. I just have this reference, this mythology that I've studied, which can be incredibly helpful, but you're going to go off on your own journey and live your life and have your own awareness and your own perspectives. And that's what's really beautiful about being human.
I love it. It's my favorite system, honestly. And it's not just because I'm a special manifestor.
I mean,
but
at least something tells you that you're special.
It's a perk.
We're all special though.
I know, we really, really are. Really. And it's not just about being a generator. I mean, like there's so many gates, like there's channels, there's gates, there's so much. It's so complex. It's like, that's why getting your chart read is like, I mean, like you would have one chart reading and it's just not enough. There's like more that needs to, but you need to be able to integrate it. So I have a last question for you.
Yes.
Come on, here we go. So what advice do you have for someone who's interested in learning more about human design or just starting to experiment with human design? Like, what is your advice? What should they do?
Yeah, I would say to keep it really simple, focus on strategy first, because your authority is something that will make sense over time. But, you know, and a lot of people say strategy and authority, and yes, absolutely. But I think sometimes it's overwhelming. Even the authority piece is overwhelming at first. And so just start experimenting with your strategy and see what happens. And then authority will start to make more sense the more you navigate your strategy. And then if you're liking the system, if it's, you know, checking all the boxes for you and you have a connection to the system, I would say book a reading. Book a reading with somebody who you feel connected to. Maybe it's somebody who's the same type or same profile as you. A lot of times people are attracted to their type when they first hear about it, but also I don't think there's any rules when it comes to that. It's just, who do you feel called to work with and who is pulling you in or making you feel invited, or who speaks to you, and that's going to be the person that's meant to initiate you into the system or guide you into the system. So that's, you know, and then from there, of course, there's so many different, you could take a class, you could get a book, there's so many different directions that you could go with it. But to keep it really simple, focus on your strategy, authority will start to reveal itself to you, and book a reading.
Amazing. So speaking about readings, can people book readings with you?
Absolutely.
And how do they do that?
Yeah, so they can go to my website, howtobealion.com, and book a one-on-one session. I do 60 and 90 minutes. I usually recommend 90 minutes for your first session, and then for follow-up sessions, usually an hour is plenty of time. But you know, I like to ramble, and I really like to pack in a ton of information. If you do a foundation session with me, you know, I'm not just going to keep it basic. I'm going to tell you whatever I feel you need to hear in that moment. And you're going to be able to listen to that reading over and over again. Like you said, you know, be able to go back.
Yeah.
And
I listened to mine
it.
a year later and it was like,
it's crazy,
it
right?
was really, really, really cool after like, you know, bringing it into my real life and experimenting. And I think it's really, really important and tangible information. And I think you all will enjoy your experience. I did. So go on over there, howtobealion.com. Make it happen. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was great.
I'm like, goodbye, people. I'm tired.
Yeah, you're like, I'm done.
I've ridden the sacral for the day, so
yeah.
Thank you for listening to Conscious Connection, the podcast. We want to remind you that any statements or opinions shared on this podcast are from our own experiences or that of our guests, and we invite you to take what resonates and leave what doesn't. If you love our show and want to connect with us further, please reach out through our website or Instagram linked in the show notes. We're excited to announce our group program Metamorphosis will be launching in the fall. To learn more, please go to alexandriakenyon.com/metamorphosis. See you next time.